Village of Hainesville regular board meeting will now come to order on Tuesday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. If everybody will please rise and I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Minnesota.
Present.
Trustees Dieronowski.
Here.
Priest.
Here.
Duberstein. Here. Barrett.
Present.
Daly.
Here.
And Walkington.
Here.
Okay, we have a full board. We are in quorum. I could have a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Trustees Dieronowski.
Aye.
Priest.
Aye.
Duberstein. Aye. Barrett.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Before I go to public comments, I would love to give a warm welcome. We're delighted that we have our former mayor, Ted Mueller, here with us tonight. So Ted, welcome. We're glad to see you up and looking good. And we knew Ted was coming, so we baked some cakes. Kelly picked up a couple oven cakes, so everybody enjoy themselves. At this time, we do take public comments. Anybody wishing to address the board should have filled out a form and turned it into the clerk. No takers? Going, gone. All right, we will move on to our omnibus vote agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. I'm trying to shorten the meeting.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Gary. I know I get your support.
Trustees Dieronowski.
Aye.
Priest.
Aye.
Duberstein. Aye. Barrett.
Aye.
Daly.
Aye.
And Walkington.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Last week the IML conference was underway downtown, and I was down there Thursday and Friday. There were a lot of clerk topics this year, so both our village clerk, Kathy Metzler, and our deputy clerk, Roseanne Stark, attended. And our treasurer went down this year as well to cover financial topics. So being that we're working on changes again in our financial policies, so we brought back some good information. And I will be passing out some new policies. There was a lot of coverage on social media, everything from texting to Facebook and all that good stuff. I'm happy to say that we're pretty compliant, but nonetheless, I'll put out some policies and rules for everyone. Just keep ourselves safe on that. Also, we had some excitement Friday evening. We had a pretty major water main break in town. These things seem to like to occur on Friday at rush hour, dinner time. It was an 8-inch main in Deer Point. Proximity is Hunter's Way and Whitetail by the Big Rock, if everybody knows that famous landmark. So we wound up doing a night dig because it was spewing about 300 gallons a minute. We drained about a third of the tower. So the good news is everything worked well within our system, with our water operator, the contractor. Our police chief was also outstanding, getting the police out to just assist us with the traffic control and make sure everything was safely marked. And I love that the police chief also has fire experience because he's always concerned about the amount of water we have on hand to put out a fire. So we actually got some compliments from residents and some thank yous saying they were impressed with how quickly we handled the situation. So although I'm not looking forward to seeing the bill for particularly a night dig, I must say. My compliments to everyone, the staff and our contractors. Was handled very well. Also, some other big news is we love to recycle here in Hainesville, and there's going to be an event. I'm looking for the flyer. It's out in the foyer. November 3rd in Mundelein at the Lake County DOT Department. We'll be hosting Smuggler's Recycle America Day, so there's all kinds of goodies you can bring. If you didn't take advantage of our electronic recycling, there's quite a variety of items you can bring to this, and there's going to be giveaways and some vendors, so mark that from 9 to 1 p.m. Saturday, November 3rd. And there's a link on our website with the flyers, so you can find it that way. And then I just want to say I'm very excited that we have a presentation tonight with the village manager and assistant village manager of Grace Lake, so we'll be introducing them very shortly. Is there any announcements for any of the standing committees?
We had our village cleanup on Saturday. It had been postponed from the previous Saturday, so it was fairly apparent that people had other things to do that day. There were 8 of us that did the cleanup, 5 from Tall Oak, and 1 National Honor Society student from Round Lake High School. The sponsor of the National Honor Society from Round Lake High School came, and the younger brother of the student who's in the Junior Honor Society in middle school came and helped. And we got quite a bit accomplished. I think we have about 10 bags of yuck that we accumulated, and then we had a pizza party after, and we appreciated everyone's help, and they appreciated the tour of the building and the pizza.
Well, I want to give my thanks and hats off to both you, Georgianne, and to George Duberstein, who's in our audience here, because, again, we were away and handling other issues such as the water main, and I commend you, because really, for only having that many people, I think you did quite a significant job. I mean, you covered a lot of territory, so we thank you very much. The village looks better for it. Any other announcements from the standing committees?
The Public Safety Committee had a meeting tonight, and we had an update on the safety issue or safety concern that we had on the Bighorn Drive and Hainesville Road, the property and the landscape. The mayor informed us that Jeff Cady and Manhart and Tree Cut Landscape, I believe that's, they went out and surveyed the property and found out what was actually on the property, as far as the landscapes and the trees and the shrubs. And most of the concerns that we had about the trees that needed to be cut down or whatever, cut back, were on the residents' property, as private property. Came up with a plan. The mayor today informed me also that he came up with a plan and gave a quote. She agreed to it. The residents had contacted her earlier, I believe, okay, and what was going on actually with what their concerns were. And I guess Tree Cut is going to call them before they do anything and just sort of inform them what's going to be happening over there. But it looks like it's going to be happening pretty soon, according to what the mayor said. So that's great news, because, you know, every time I go past her, I was kind of looking back. Jeff, Jerry and I were driving today, and there was a bike coming by, and the guy didn't even stop, he didn't even see him, and they just, you know.
The main culprit, if you're familiar with this, when you're leaving on Bighorn to turn on Hainesville Road, it's very hard to see anything coming down the bike path from the north. And there is a very large bush-type tree that is in their easement or right-of-way, and that is going to be removed. The other trees that are overgrown around the residents' property, but they're hanging over on the easement, those are all going to be trimmed back. The resident acknowledges that it's a public safety hazard. And there is a tree that was damaged by a storm already that we took out that left kind of a gap. So for their cooperation, we are putting a 6 to 8 foot spruce in place of that gap, and for their cooperation. So that they were very happy with that. And this is all taking place for approximately $1,000, including the cost of the tree. So it's a reasonable quote for, and it's an arborist doing the work, which the residents was glad to hear. So they will do a good job with the trees and answer any questions they have.
Well, I had a little experience with your own. You shouldn't do cut that much back either. So.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, we're going to move on to our showtime. Number one and only item under business, which is the presentation on budgeting and planning for capital projects. And we have the village manager, Mike Ellis, and Derek Soderholm from the Village of Grays Lake that will lead us through this journey and share their wisdom with us. How's that for an intro?
Well, that's good. Now all exaggerations are out of the way. All right, actually, Derek and I actually enjoyed this project. Thanks to the mayor asking us. I think I bought coffee that day, actually, so probably,
I wrote the date down.
That's right. So Derek and I are kind of weird. We kind of like this stuff. So thanks to Trustee Daly and Kelly for giving us the information. They helped us a lot in trying to figure out exactly what the information we needed, and they provided it to us. So we were able to really do this project. We enjoyed it. We like this stuff, as I said. So I guess we'll get right into it here, and we'll go through a presentation on what we found in the course of our work. First, what we're going to start with here is just talk about some practices and what sound financial sort of techniques that are used in the industry. I guess I could start by just saying that based on what we looked at, your finances are pretty strong. You've got a healthy fund balance that meets your needs. Your costs per capita are very reasonable against what we know from other communities. And your budget is generally balanced. So all of that's a pretty good foundation for what we're going to try to do today, it's a little more long-term trend kind of looking and kind of pulling apart your budget a little bit so that we can see what's going on in there. And how we do that is by applying these 5 principles. We're going to go through each of these steps in this presentation so we can show you what effect it has on the budget numbers that are included in the document you currently have. And when that's all done, we're going to give you a little fiscal health analysis, 7 or 8 points about what all those numbers mean once we were able to pull them apart and really see what was going on with the numbers. And then there's some other things you can do. We think these are more long-term things. They're options for you. Things can change. Our estimates could be wrong, or things could adjust based on your own analysis. We'll give you some ideas about some things that would probably help you in the long term, and then we'll give you a couple of suggested steps that you can start with. So I guess we'll go right ahead. First thing here is very important. At Grays Lake, we have about a 300-page forecast in our budget. Forecasting for the long term is a critical best practice. It's something that when we've done, Derek and I have done these presentations in some other towns and other associations and the like, and this is always where we start. At some point, you want to have a good long-term forecast, at least 5 years, perhaps 7 or 8. That gives you an ability to look at what you're doing every year and see if it's helping you financially or hurting you financially based on what you're doing. That way you can look, and that's a vital part of what you do, so that you don't wake up in 3 years from now and go, why are we in this situation? Well, it could be a decision or 2 that you made along the way. They were all good decisions at the time, but tough to really know the financial impact if you don't forecast. Secondly, we try to have a budget that has certain components in it and treats the expenses and the revenues in certain ways. Certainly that you should have a budget document that's a single document. A lot of communities have a revenue document and an expense document, and that looks to be where you're standing at this point. That's okay. When you're putting them together, you can certainly do that and operate and judge from the results of what we saw. You guys are using that approach effectively. But we prefer to put everything in one document. That way you can look at it and see it, compare it side by side, helps with better analysis. Another, we think, is almost a very important practice is to separate the capital expenses from your operating expenses. Your operating expenses are the ones that you got to have to keep the doors open, keep the services being delivered to the public. The capital projects can sometimes be things that are elective. So you can set those aside and deal with those separately and make decisions on them separately after you've covered your operating expenses. You should also, of course, take your costs there and make sure that they're actually put against the actual services that you're providing, so that you're not having dollars that you're generating in one way, paying for something over here where you're charging a fee for it, when the fee may or may not be enough to take care of your situation and the cost of doing those services that you're providing. And when you do that, you'll find that you have certain business type activities in your budget. We call them enterprise funds because they're really business functions. They're supposed to generate the revenue that's needed to pay the costs to provide the service. So the water and sewer is a very common one. Garbage is another very common one, both of the services you provide.